Yes, sir. Please start the meeting.
Hello. Hello.
Gule sir, please start.
Yes, sir. So very good afternoon to all. Once again, we are in the another session of E.R. Vaidya sir. He already enlightened us yesterday on the topic of ETABS and its basic. He is going to enlighten on the time history analysis. So let's welcome E.R. Vaidya sir to enlighten us on the topic of time history analysis by using ETABS. Welcome, sir.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Can you? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are
Yes, sir.
audible.
I think there is a echo.
Yeah, somewhat echo is there, but voice is clear, sir.
Okay, fine. What I will do, I will just leave the meeting and again rejoin.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, sure,
because
sir.
there's a lot
Sure.
of echo. Yeah.
Sure, sir. Sure, sure.
Hello. Am I audible now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Okay, so let me share my screen first. I think this screen sharing option is not open. So
Yeah, let me make a co-host, sir. Please. One second. Yes.
yes.
Now it is done.
Okay, fine. Yeah. Okay, so welcome all of you for this today's session on time history analysis by ETAP. I will like to thank Khandwe sir and his colleagues once again for giving me opportunity to talk with you regarding this ETABs and time history analysis. Yesterday we have a session on value addition. So now in today's session, it's basically learning time history analysis by ETAP. So how to perform this time history analysis using ETAP software, that we are going to see. Okay, so outline is like this. We will just see the classification of basic analysis. That means how the analysis is classified based on the force and displacements. Then we will see some of the important characteristics of ground motion. So this is the second point. The third one, that we will take a simple model of building and we'll try to apply a simple linear time history analysis. We'll perform the time history analysis on that particular model, and that we will see step by steps. We will interpret the results that we'll get from time history, and we'll try to plot some responses regarding this earthquake load. Okay, so this is how this session will be there. Okay, so to start with, again, this analysis is classified basically in three types. One is force-based classification, another is material-based classification, and third is deformation-based classification, right? So force-based, you have got static analysis and dynamic analysis. It's very simple. So once your force is not varying with respect to time, that is called as a static force. So all the forces, almost all the forces in the nature are of dynamic nature. Okay, so it is not static, but for our convenience, we categorize it as a static and dynamic. The force which is not changing for long duration, that we call it as a static. For example, your self weight of the building, which will be there for around 50 years, so it is not changing. So self weight is there, so we categorize that as a static force. Dynamic, it is varying with respect to time. So for every time instant, your intensity of the force is varying. So if you plot the variation of force with respect to time, you will get a graph something like this. So it is varying with respect to time. So that is a dynamic force. This is a force-based classification, static analysis, and then dynamic analysis. So you can perform both types of the analysis. Actually, this static is a equivalent static. We will be converting the dynamic force into the equivalent static force, and then we will try to apply the force on the structure. So that is called as a static. Material base, it is linear and non-linear. So linear type behavior, that means force and deformations are proportional to each other. Hooke's law is obeyed up to certain limit, that is called as a elastic limit, and after that the behavior is categorized as a non-linear. So once your force deformation relationship is not a straight line or inclined line, that is categorized as non-linear type behavior. Okay, so in practice, in actual practice, when your material is allowed to deform, the point where the first crack develop in the material, from that point onward, your analysis will become non-linear. Okay, so then of course there is a plastic deformation, and at certain point there is a failure of the material. Okay, so the force and deformation relationship after the linear graph becomes non-linear, and then you have to perform a non-linear type analysis. So non-linearity also, there are two types. One is geometric non-linearity and another is material non-linearity. Okay, so material analyzing the structure for material non-linearity is a little bit simple compared to the geometric non-linearity, and if you want to incorporate both, that will be the most difficult type of analysis, and that we will categorize in a deformation base. So deformation based classification are like small deformation analysis and large deformation analysis. In large deformation analysis, we will consider geometric as well as material nonlinearity. So this is most complicated type of analysis as far as these methods are concerned. There are few softwares which is available which can perform both material as well as which can incorporate both material as well as geometric nonlinearity. As far as this ETAB is concerned, the ETAB software will consider material nonlinearity in link type element. So in ETAB, you have got different link elements like gap element is there, compression spring is there, simple link is there, non-linear link is there. Again, there is a element called dampers. So all these are link element with certain degrees of freedom at each of the node. So there are two nodes connecting the link, and depending on the type of analysis and type of the behavior you want. Suppose if you want to make the building as an isolated building, so you can use a isolated as a link element, and then you can assign the properties to that particular element. But the thing is, whatever non-linearity is there, that is concentrated on link element only. That is in case of ETAB. Okay, so other element will behave like a linear thing, and whatever non-linear element in the form of link is there, that will be as a non-linear element only. So you can model and you can use the different element starting from link, and then there are dampers, then there are gap type element. Gap type element is basically used when you want to model the ponding effect. Okay, so if there is a ponding between the two building, that means impact of these two building, that can be modeled with the help of this gap element. Okay, so these are the things which can be performed in ETAB software. So this is how the basic classification will be there. Okay, so let's move ahead. Now, what we are doing in earthquake or any type of analysis is we have got the excitations. So any type of analysis, not only the lateral load analysis, whether it is gravity load, lateral load, or maybe thermal changes, settlement, vibration. These are all loads. So this is what we call excitation. So we are applying the force in the form of excitation to the structure. Now the force or the loads which we'll be applying is either static or dynamic, and then we are applying this force to a particular building or element. So that building can be, or any element can be either elastic or inelastic. Okay, and then we are trying to predict the response of this particular structure after application of the load, and the responses can be linear and non-linear. So this is a very simple way of understanding the structural behavior. So we have got three elements. One is load, that can be either static or dynamic. Another is whatever element you are analyzing or maybe building, that can be elastic or inelastic. And then the response, what you get from this particular process, that can be linear or non-linear. Okay, so this is very simple. Okay, so let's move ahead. Okay, now we'll see some of the important ground motion characteristics. Okay, let me remove this. Okay, I think now it is visible, PPT. I'm trying to remove this logo. Okay. Oh, so ground motion characteristics, basically we'll try to understand what is the ground motion and how this earthquake force is developed and how it is transferred to the your actual structure that is building. Can we remove this? This some pop-ups are there. So can we switch off this? Just give. Okay, fine. Okay, so ground motion or ground motion characteristics, when we say is actual means actual motion of the ground and how it is transferred to the building and how the forces are generated and it is transferred from bottom to the top. That we will try to understand. So there are certain characteristics that you need to understand before going for time history analysis. Very basic things. This is already learned in, I mean, it is already given in a lot of books. Okay, of course the code also has got certain things. But these are the basic things that you need to understand before going for time history analysis. So first thing is ground motion or recording instrument. Okay, so this instrument will look like this is a photo of actual recording instrument. So whenever there is a vibration will be there in all three direction, along X, along Y, and along Z also. Okay, so this instrument is capable of recording vibrations or accelerations in all possible direction, along X, along Y, and Z also. But the thing is, we are not considering the vertical earthquake effect, because whatever vertical acceleration is there, what vertical force is there, that is counterbalanced with the help of self weight of the structure. So you have got huge self weight. So whenever there is a vertical vibration, because of the self weight, the effect of that vibration is nullified most of the cases. Okay, so vertical effect is not means considerable as far as this earthquake is concerned. Only thing is you need to evaluate the structure for horizontal earthquake effect. Okay, so because that is most damaging. So we will be considering earthquake in two directions of the building, orthogonal direction, that is along X and along Y. And then we'll try to find out the forces which is developed because of this acceleration at different level of the building. Okay, so but IS code has got certain recommendation to whether to consider the earthquake vertical earthquake motion or not. So what IS code says is when your structure is situated in zone 4 or 5, you have to consider the vertical earthquake effect. Also, when the structure is situated on soft soil or maybe on for bridges structure or for long span structure, this vertical earthquake effect should be considered. Now there is another thing, when you have got large horizontal overhang, that time also you have to go for the vertical earthquake analysis. The reason behind this is when you have got long horizontal span. So in case of vertical motion, this particular element is most affected. Okay, so you have to go for the horizontal means vertical earthquake shaking. Effect of vertical earthquake shaking should also be considered in your analysis. Okay, so this is about the ground motion. Now earthquake, there is an interesting fact about the earthquake magnitude. So each of the magnitude is actually 33 times more powerful than the last magnitude. So if you consider the magnitude of 6 and 7, there will be a difference of 33 times. release of energy. So likewise, if you consider the difference between 6 and 8 magnitude, it is 1089 times more powerful than 6 magnitude. So 8 magnitude is around 1089 times powerful than 6 magnitude 6. So likewise, if you consider the difference between magnitude 9 and magnitude 6, that difference is 35,000 times. Okay, so it's a huge difference. So magnitude is a very important parameter as far as the earthquake is concerned, and each of the magnitude will represent the amount of energy which is developed because of the earthquake. Then earthquake graph, that means earthquake plot, what you get will look like this. This is just an snapshot of acceleration versus time value. It is not necessary that always you can record the acceleration. The velocity plot is also there. Displacement plot can also be recorded. So this is an time history of acceleration. So you can go for the time history of velocity also. You will get the time history of displacement also. But relevant thing for application of time history analysis is acceleration. So we will apply the acceleration load to the particular structure. So this is how it will look like. So there are different points. So along with the time, these acceleration values are varying. So with respect to time, there are different acceleration values. And at certain point of time, you will get the maximum acceleration value. That we will call it as a PGA. That is peak ground acceleration, right? So PGA value is another measure of the earthquake damage. Okay, so only PGA will not measure how much damage it will cause, but of course it is one of the parameters that you have to look at when you are assessing the damage of the structure. So this is one of the parameters. Along with that, there are a number of parameters that you have to see. The duration is one, the epicentral distance is another one. So all these parameters together will give you an idea of the damage intensity of the earthquake. Okay, so but this is one of the very important thing. So mostly when you have got time history of any one of the earthquake, this PGA value is specifically mentioned there. So that will give you the intensity, means idea how much damaging is this earthquake is. So PGA value you can read from that entire graph. It will be there for a particular time period. Okay, let me see. This waiting room is there. So okay, I will admit all. Okay, fine. So this is how you can measure the earthquake intensity. So this is called the peak ground acceleration. Now, in time history analysis, you have got the time histories of different earthquakes. For example, these are some of the examples of different types of the earthquake, and these are time histories for these types of earthquake. Okay, so this is nothing but the load. Okay, so now our load is look like this. Okay, so this is how we are going to apply this type of load to particular structure in ETABS. So this is your load, and what we get after application of this load is another time history. Okay, so remember, when you perform a time history analysis for a particular load or for a particular time history, in return you will get again a time history. But this time history and this time history is different. This is a load time history, this is a load time history, and this is a response time history, right? So load and response. So what I mean to say is, actually what we get is a response, and the response is in the form of history again. Okay, so supposing if you are applying say 5,000 time steps for a particular load, each will be having 0.02 interval. So each time step will be having 0.02 as an interval. Then for 5,000 time step, you will get 5,000 different results. So for each of the parameters, each of the performance parameters, for example, if you take the displacement, so you have got the displacement, there are 5,000 results for each of the node, So like that, there will be thousands, maybe sometimes number of nodes will be there in your model. So for each of the node, you will get 5,000 results. Similarly, if you consider the bending moment or shear force, similarly, you will get the 5,000 different results if you are going to analyze for 5,000 time steps. So that is what we call as a response. Okay. Now, now we will move to the actual time history method. So in ETAB, you can perform time history by two methods. One is called as a direct integration method and another is modal superposition method, right? So both of the method can be used. So what is direct integration method? Direct integration method is a simple mathematical way of solving the dynamic equilibrium equation. So you have got this dynamic equilibrium equation. First is your mu double dot cu dot ku t is equal to f of t. F of t is the external force. So if you simplify this equation, this is nothing but the force which is generated due to moving mass, and that is acting in one of the direction horizontally. So this force is resisted by two actions. One is the elastic force of lateral load resisting element, and another is a damping force of the elements. Okay, so these are the two forces which is resisting the force generated due to the moving mass. Okay, so this is a force which is generated due to moving mass, and these forces are elastic force and the damping force are the forces which is acting in opposite direction, which is resisting this externally applied or generated force due to inertia, right? And then you have got the moving mass. So this is how your equation will look like. The first part is a mass, second is the damping, and then stiffness. So mass, damping, and stiffness, these three forces will be very important as far as your structure is concerned. So this can be represented in spring mass system like this. So of course the stiffness is represented with the help of spring, and then you have got a damping system which will be represented like this. So this is how the system will work. So what ETAB will do for direct integration method, he will solve this dynamic equilibrium equation for each of the time steps. For every time step, this equation is solved. Okay, but that is not the case in case of modal time history. So modal time history is little bit different than direct integration time history. Okay, so this is direct integration. Now we will see the modal time history. What is modal time history? So modal time history is nothing but actually we are converting and means we are simulating our actual building into the mass and spring system. Okay, so you have got masses. So at every floor level, the masses are lumped. Okay, so masses are lumped at the floor level because at floor level the lateral stiffness is large. So we will consider the masses to be lumped at floor level, each of the floor level, and then there are displacement at each of the floor levels. So U1, U2, U3 are the displacement which is occurring at each of the floor level because of the lateral force. So this is called as a multi-degree of freedom system. You must have learned all these things. So this is MDOF system. So this is we will be converting the actual lumped mass system into multi-degree of freedom system. Okay, so what modal analysis will do? There are number of modes associated with each of the degrees of freedom. For example, let us say if your building is having 1,000 nodes. Nodes means points. 1,000 nodes are there in particular building. Because we will be modeling this as a three-dimensional structure, each node has got 6 degrees of freedom in each of the direction. So 6 DOF at each node, and like that if there are 1,000 nodes, so 1,000 into 6, that much degrees of freedom will be there, and that much number of modes you can consider for any of the building. Okay, so number of mode can be infinite. So how many number of modes to be considered, that is again a question. For that you have to refer the mass participation. Okay, so where your mass participation is above 95%, that much mode should be included in your actual mathematical model. Okay, so what is modal response? Modal response is nothing but there are different modes. So mode number 1, you have got the deformation shape. So mode 2, again some different deformation shape at each of the level, right? So overall response is nothing but the response summation of responses of each of the mode at each of the level. For example, if you want to find out the response, overall response at this level, it is nothing but participation into response of first mode, but plus participation into response of second mode, and then participation into response of third mode at each of the level, and then finally you will get the response of overall response at that particular level. Okay, so this is again with respect to time. So when you find the overall response, it is at which location and at which time. Okay, so that is how this modal thing will work. So this is a modal superposition method or modal time history method that can be also be used in ETAP. Okay, so these two methods are used. One is direct integration and another is modal time history. Okay. Now again, when you go for the analysis, you will find two options there. One is called as Ritz vector and another is eigenvector. So which vector to be used is again a question. So for that, I will give you a simple example of what will be the difference between these two analysis type. So eigenvector and Ritz vector. So let us say if you have got a building and over that building there is a slender element, maybe tower or antenna will be there, and then this you have modeled this building along with this antenna. Okay, so antenna is there, antenna, or you can call it as a tower. Tower is also slender element which has got higher length is more, but the mass of the particular element is less compared to the building. This is completely RCC building having huge mass, and along with that you have modeled this also. So what will happen if you apply a horizontal load to this type of the building? So naturally, when you have got a slender element, so slender element, there will be large deformation. So it is a flexible element. It will deform in both of the direction. So there is a large deformation for this slender element. But compared to the building deformation is very less. So what will happen to the mode? Mode will try to capture the period which is more. Okay, so if you go with the eigenvector analysis, you will end up with a very less base shear. Okay, so even if your entire building is there with huge mass, your base shear value, if you check, that base shear value is very low compared to the entire seismic mass of the building. Okay, why it is so? Because it will eigenvector will capture the modes related to this slender element because it has got more time period. Okay, but if you do the Ritz vector analysis, so the Ritz vector analysis will capture the modes first, which will be having more participation. Okay, so the modes which will be having more participation of the masses, that is captured first, and then later on the modes which are having less participation will be placed in later sequence. Okay, so first 1, 2, 3 mode, that will be the actual realistic response of this particular building. So it is better to go for Ritz vector analysis instead of eigenvector analysis when you have got a situation like this. Even for time history or any other dynamic analysis method, always Ritz vector is recommended. This similar is the case when you have got a mezzanine floor, which is a little bit slender floor compared to the entire building. So, and if you apply a vertical acceleration to this type of the building, so this element, which is a slender element, will vibrate in vertical direction, and then of course it is more flexible compared to the entire building. And then if you do eigenvector analysis, that will capture the movement of this particular small element, which will not be a realistic response. Again, the base shear value what you get is less compared to the overall response of the building. So better to go for Ritz vector analysis. Okay, fine. So these are the two methods. Then again, there are two options. This everything I will show you in actual model also, not an issue. So in period wise, there are two time history. One is transient and another is periodic. Periodic time history is a history like this. Supposing this is a table which will explain what is periodic time history. There are different functions lumped together for a particular range of time. For example, this function 1 is applied from 0 to 0.25 second. Function 2 is up to 0.5 second, and then up to 1 second, like that. So you can split this time history into number of time histories, and that is a periodic time history. One after another, the time history will continue. So that is periodic. Other way of doing it is a transient way. Okay, so now let us go to the actual time history record, how it will look like. So this is a time history record of a Bhuj earthquake. So we'll try to understand these parameters and then we will apply this time history to the actual model. Okay, so this is a snapshot of actual time history record. Okay, so there are different parameters that you need to understand first. This is the name of the earthquake. So of course it is a Bhuj earthquake. The date is mentioned here. The time at which this record is there, that time is also mentioned. And then you have got these two things, magnitude. So there are 7 MB and then this is 7.6 ms. So this is first one is body wave magnitude and another is surface magnitude. Okay, so there are two different types of magnitude. One is body wave and surface magnitude. Okay, so this is mentioned here. Then there is a station where it is recorded. So Ahmedabad is the station. Of course, the station latitude and longitude is mentioned here. So why this is important, latitude and longitude? By using this location coordinates, you can actually calculate the epicentral distance. So where your earthquake epicenter is there, and from that epicenter, how much is the distance of your recording station? Okay, so that is also important. By using this information, you can categorize your earthquakes as a far field or near field earthquake. Okay, so up to 50 kilometer it is near field, and beyond 50 kilometer generally it is categorized as a far field earthquake. So if you can there are certain online softwares available that if you put this longitude and latitude there, you will get the epicentral distance. Okay, so and then of course this is the direction, northeast components is there. Then another interesting thing is accelerogram bandpass filter between 0.07 hertz to 27 hertz. So this note is always there. So what is this? Actually, when you record this earthquake or earthquake vibration in form of acceleration, there are certain other vibrations also will be there at your station. For example, if the vehicles are moving. Okay, so because of the movement of the vehicle, there are certain vibration. Of course, they are very small compared to the acceleration or the vibration produced by the earthquake. But of course, there are certain vibrations. So we don't want that. So what we want is purely earthquake record. So for that, this small intensity or small frequency vibrations should be neglected. So that's why whatever record you got, that has to be filtered between certain intensity. Okay, it's like that. Here it is 0.07 hertz to 27 hertz. This is the frequency range where this record is filtered. So whatever vibrations will be there below this frequency, that is 0.07 hertz, that is not recorded. Okay, that is neglected. Okay, then you have got initial velocity, initial displacement for the structure. Then, of course, a peak acceleration value is mentioned here. As I told you, it is 1.03 meter per second per second. Okay, so now remember this unit is also important. Why? Because we will be scaling our magnitude, or sorry, our earthquake force in terms of these units only. So whatever units are there, this is a recording unit, and whatever units you will be using in ETAP, so you have to scale according to the units in ETAP. Supposing if you are using in ETAP, your length unit is in mm, so you have to convert this acceleration point in mm. So meter to mm will be your scale factor. So scale factor is an important thing. So likewise here there are 26,000 acceleration points which is recorded at an interval of 0.005 second. So this first acceleration value is at 0 second, and then next will be at 0.005, and likewise it goes on increasing, and then you will get 26,706 multiplied by 0.005. That much duration of the earthquake, recorded earthquake will be there. Okay, so that is a function. Okay, so these are the basic things you need to understand before going for the time history analysis. Now let me again share my screen so that I can show you all these things in actual model. Okay, Is it visible? My ETAP screen is visible to you? Hello?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Sir,
Okay,
sir, it
fine.
is visible.
Yes, fine. Okay, so this is a very small model which is prepared just to show you how to apply the time history for a particular earthquake record. Now we have got a record file in the form of notepad. So notepad record file, earthquake record file is there with us, and then we will try to apply that earthquake, time history to this particular model. It is a very small model. Actually, it is not a model, it is a frame. Okay, so actual building will not be like this. There are a lot of unsymmetry. But for understanding purpose, this small model is prepared where you have got 3 bays in one direction and 2 bays in another directions. And then all the properties, everything is model here. Beam, column, slab, along with crack sectional properties, moment of inertia, and then even dynamic response spectra is also applied. Now we will try to apply the time history for this particular model. Okay, so before that, let me show you the time history record first. So okay, so these are the some time history record that is there. So I will just open this Buch time history because just now we have seen this Buch time history only. So this is how it will look like. There are number of acceleration points. So you can see there are 26,000 acceleration points. Okay, so and this is not there. This is just I have written for your understanding only that we will see in ETABS. Anyway, but this data is important. This topmost data is important. And what we want is software should read our data from this point. So this is a starting point. So this is the first point, and it should read the data up to the last point. So this will be your last point, whatever it is. So from first point to last point, that data should be read by the software. And other all this information I have already explained to you. Now let us see how to apply this time history in actual model. Okay, so for that, what we need to do first is you have to define the function. Like you define the function for response spectra, in the same way you have to define the function for time history also. So how to define the function? Again, it is very simple. You have to go to define. There are function option, and here there are two options. One is response spectra and another is time history. Okay, so you have to define. You have to go for the time history. So okay, so once you go for the time history, this is already defined. So let me delete this function first so that you can understand. Okay, now there is no function. So I will define the time history. There are different options for defining the time history. One is from file. One you can user defining option is also there. If you have got period versus acceleration value, you can go with the user defined time history also. There are certain ready-made time histories which is available in the software that also you can use, or there are certain sine cosine histories or RAM type functions. All these functions, sawtooth type functions that can be defined, but we will be defining now Buch time history that is from file. So we have got the file, so we'll say from file. Okay, and then we'll say add new function. Okay, now this dialog box is open. Now here you have to put the name of the time history function. So whatever the time history you are going to use, and then you have to give the path of that particular time history file. So let's say, let's give the path. So let's say Buch. Okay, so say open. Now you have to watch this. Okay, so when your data is correct, you will see the graph here. Now there is no graph at this point. Okay, so why? Because we are not given the input parameters. Okay, so I will show you, I will explain you what are these input parameters. The first input parameter, now this is a name. You can change this name if you want, but I will keep this Buch as a name. Then the first input is header lines to skip. Okay, so let me open that time history graph again so that I can show you the other things. Okay, can you see this Buch earthquake file?
No, sir.
No. Okay, so let me share you the screen again. So every time I have to share the screen. Okay. Okay. Can you see this now?
Yes, now it is visible.
sir.
Okay, fine. So number of lines to skip, header lines to skip, right? So we want that there are certain data which is written at the top of the time history file. There are 4-5 lines which is at the top of the time history file that we don't want the software to be read. Okay, so this data we don't want. From this point onward, what we want is from this point onward, the software should read the data. Okay, so you have to count this line, how many lines to be skipped. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So 8 lines you have to skip, correct? And after 8th line, the data should be read, correct? So these are the number of lines to skip. Okay, so let us go back to again to the model. Okay, so header lines to skip. Here I will write 8. Okay, 8 lines we have to skip. Then there are number of points per line. So as you can see, as I put this header lines to skip, this graph has appeared now. Okay, so this is a graph. This is a time history. So prefix characters per line to skip. There may be certain spaces between the first point to start. So uske beech mein if there is a space, so you can skip that characters. So that you have to put it here. And then number of points per line. So there are 8 points per horizontal line is there. So 8 you have to put here. And then values at equal interval of. Now, as we can see in the time history data itself, these values are recorded at 0.005 second interval. Okay, so here you have to write at 0.005. Okay, so 0.005 is our input. That's all. So this is how this time history record will be there. Now this is a time history function definition. Okay, so this step is over now. Okay, so let's say okay. It will take some time. Okay, now this function has appeared in your function list. So we have defined the time history function. The name of the function is Booch, and whatever input parameters are there that we have already given. So that's it. So function definition is over now. Say okay. Now we will actually define the time history case. Now before defining the time history case, you have to change the modal case. That means by default, this modal function is by eigenvector, right? So that you have to change to Ritz vector. The reason I have already explained to you why we will be using the Ritz vector. So for that you go to define, and here you will find the modal cases, right? So modal cases will be there. Now here I have already set it to Ritz vector. So you can change it from here, or you can add the new case. So here the function is there, either eigen or Ritz. So these two options are there for you. So as I told you, you have to go for the Ritz vector analysis when you do time history or response spectra analysis. So the name of the function as per your as you desire, you can write any name. So I have written modal Ritz. Okay. And then there are two options. One is use nonlinear case and then use p-delta setting. So this I will keep at default. Okay, and then loads applied. This is very important. So because we will be applying the time history in horizontal directions only. So I have defined here acceleration in UX direction and acceleration in UI direction, where UX and UI are your horizontal directions, right? And then there is a target participation ratio. This is by default, the software will neglect this, whatever value you keep here, that has no importance. So by default it is 99%. So that is not achieved. So this is neglected. Okay, and then there are certain advanced option also. If you want to use, there are certain advanced option that you can set, but we will not go into that. Anyway, but these are the basic things that is required to be defined in case of Ritz vector. Now number of nodes is preliminary, it is set at 12 nodes. Okay, so once your participation is achieved, 95% participation is achieved, that much nodes you have to consider. So for normal building, This 12 to 15 modes are enough, because first 3 mode will give you higher participation, and then next modes their participation will be less. But of course, summation of all participation should be at least 95%. That you have to check. Okay, so I have considered the 12 modes for this particular load case, and let's say okay. So okay, so this modal definition is over now. Now we'll actually define the time history load case. So for that you have to go to define, and then load cases are there. This is already defined. So let me delete this first, and then I will define a new load case. Okay, fine. So for that, these are all load cases which is previously defined: dead load, live load, roof live load, EQX. These are the static cases, response spectra cases. Now remember, all cases you can define in a single model. Okay, so if you want to do, say, 7 different time histories, okay, all 7 different time histories along with response spectra, along with equivalent static, all you can define together in a single model. That is not a case, correct? That is not an issue. So you can perform all types of analysis: response spectra, then equivalent static, then time history in a single model. No need to prepare different models for different cases. Okay, so all cases can be lumped in a single model. Okay, so now here equivalent static and response spectra is already defined. Now we'll add the time history load case here. And also IS 1893 permit your dynamic analysis either by time history or by response spectra. Okay, both are acceptable. Okay, so let us add one new load case. So add new load case. Okay, here you can give the name of the load case. I will just write time history THX, time history in X direction, right? So it is not linear static, it is a time history function, right? So just change this option to time history. Okay, and then once you change this option to time history, he will ask you these 3 options, 3/4 option. One is non-linear model, another is linear model, linear direct integration, and non-linear direct integration. Remember, the basic difference between modal time history and a direct integration time history that I already told you. But linear or non-linear, that is the type of responses. Okay, so supposing if you are using, say, dampers in your models, okay, so naturally you have to go for non-linear time history, right? Because there is a link element which is there in your model. Supposing if you are modeling, say, base isolation technique, or if you are modeling the pounding effect, okay, so all these cases are categorized as a non-linear. Then only you can go for non-linear model time history. Otherwise, linear will be sufficient. Okay, because there is no non-linear element, then performing non-linear analysis is of no use. Okay, so perform non-linear analysis only when you have got non-linear element in your model in the form of link. Otherwise, linear. Okay. Then again, if you perform the direct integration time history, it will take time. Okay, so the time required for analysis will be more. So compared to the modal time history, modal will be a fast process. Direct integration will be accurate, but it will consume more time. Okay, so analysis will require more time because it is a iterative process. Anyway, but we will perform a linear modal time history only. Okay, and here you have to add the loads. Say add. Now we will be performing, means we'll be applying the acceleration load to the model in X direction. So let us say it is acceleration load, load type is acceleration. Now you have got UX, your U1, U2 and U3 here. So U1 is your horizontal direction in X direction, U2 is Y direction, and U3 is a Z direction, which is vertical earthquake. So keep this as U1, and then you have to select a function here. The function is butch, that is already defined. So whatever function you have defined previously, that will appear here. So this is butch function, and then you have to set the scale factor. As I told you, this scale factor is a factor where you have to actually convert the recorded unit into the your current ETAB unit. Now here for this particular model, the current ETAB unit is in mm. Okay, and the recorded unit length unit is in meter. So acceleration there is in meter per second, and that you have to convert it into mm per second, right? So the scale factor will be 1000. So I have to put the scale factor equal to 1000, right? Okay, so 1000 is my scale factor. Now modal load type is modal reads. The type of the analysis, as I told you, there are two types, periodic and transient. So it is transient time history. We are not going to repeat this time history after the end of the period. Number of output steps. Now this is very important. So as you know, in Bush time history that we have already seen that particular record, there are 26,000 points, recorded point with an interval of 0.005 second, right? So this is the record time. So now this output time step is not related to the record time. So you can put any output time step, but the thing is you should not miss any of the acceleration value. Okay, so how to select this number of output time step is there is a simple way. Whatever the time history time is there, how will you calculate the time history time? It is very simple. So time step for our recorded values is 0.005 multiplied by, there are around 26,000 time steps. So multiplied by 26,000, whatever value is there, that will be the time history time, means recorded time. And then you can add 5 into the time period for fundamental mode. So if your time period for fundamental mode is, let us say, 3 seconds, so 3 into 5, that is 15. So 15 steps more than that. So that will be the total analysis time, correct? So total analysis time divided by your time step will give you the output time step size. Okay, so that you have to calculate. This calculation you have to do. So for this time history, I will keep 7,000 time steps, and each time steps is of 0.02 second. Okay, so 0.02 into 7,000. If you do that, so how much it is? 0.02 into 0.02 into 7,000. Okay, so it is around 140 second, correct? So 0.02 into 7,000 is 140 second. Okay, and how much is the time recorded time history? So it is around 26,000 steps multiplied by 0.005 is a step, it is 130 second. Okay, so it is close. So you have to keep this values close so that any of the response, you cannot miss any of the response or any of the acceleration values. Okay, so that's it. So I'm putting 7,000 time steps of each time step is of 0.02 second. That's it. So this is how you can set the time history. Say okay, now this time history load case is defined, and now your model is ready for analysis. Okay, so let us run the analysis and see what we get from the analysis. Okay, I will just run this analysis. It will take some time, but if you go with the direct integration method, the time required will be more. Now here only a few seconds are required, maybe less than 1 minute. Okay, so now your analysis is done. Okay, so this is the response of dead load. So let us check the response for the time history case. Okay, so we'll just check the deformation first. Now this is the deformed shape of the building. Now here I will set the case as time history, THX. Now once you set the time history case, he will ask you the time. Okay, so what time you want the response. So our time will start with the 0 second, and as I told you, we have set the output time step as 0.02. For every 0.02 second you will get the response. Okay, so once you set this, you can see here the change is with 0.02. So first response is for 0.02 second, then for 0.06, and like that it's keep on increasing up to 140 second, right? So if I want to check what will be the response of this particular model, that is deformation of this model, for let us say after 10 seconds, so you can keep here 10. So that is the response of this model for 10 seconds. So let's say okay. You can see here deformation. So this is the step 500 of 7,000. Out of 7,000 steps, this is the 500th step, and this is the deformation for that particular step. The time period for this step is 10. Okay, so this is deformation time history. So once you are done with the analysis, you can actually calculate the response of any of the node. For example, if I select this node and if I want to plot the time history of this top node, which is at the roof level, you can just select this node and go for the display show result. You will get the time history of this node. Okay, so how to do that, that also I will show you. So let's check the node number for this. Okay, so this is unique label is 1 and label is 1. So this is joint number 1. Okay, so this is joint number 1. So here you have got display and then story response plots. Okay, or plot function. This is story response plot. This also you can use for deformation and then drift. All these thing you can see here, and then there is a plot function option also. So this is the plot function option. So now what is the function? The vertical function is base shear. So this is nothing but the base shear which is obtained from the time history. Remember, this is in the form of 10 to the power 3. Okay, so there are different options. Okay, so this is base shear that is selected. You can define a new function also from here. Okay, here you can define whatever desired function, maybe base shear, maybe displacement, or whatever you want. You can define here. You can change or you can delete the function. Okay, and for that function, you will get the graph like this. This is a graph. Now, if you want to check the values of this graph, that is also possible. You just go to this formatted. So these are nothing but the values of the base shear for different time period. As I told you, you will get 7,000 different result for single parameter. So now the parameter selected is base shear, and these are the values of the base shear for different time interval. So last one is 1/42. Okay, that you can export to Excel and then you can plot the graphs also. Okay, so graph, if you want to see, you can plot the graph like this. I will just show you the graph if I can. Just hold on just for 2 minutes. I will just open that Excel and then I will show you. Okay, fine. Okay, can you see my screen?
Sir.
Okay, fine. So this is the graph which is plotted for the base shear values for two different models. Okay, so this is one model which is in red color, and this is another model which is in blue color. Okay, so these are the time history response of base shear for two different models. Okay, one is red color and another is blue color. So these values are for different time intervals. So these are the time intervals. Of course, the time interval and other things are different for this particular graph, and these values are the base shear values for a particular history. So you can plot the history of different earthquake on a single graph. That is possible, and the histories can be base shear, histories can be displacement. This is a displacement history for Imperial Valley earthquake. So likewise, even your energy response plot also is possible. Energy means other things are also possible, like your acceleration plot. Not acceleration, input acceleration is different. So response acceleration is different. Okay, so acceleration plot is possible, velocity is possible, displacement is possible, base shear is possible. All these response parameters you will get directly from ETAP. Okay, no need to do any calculation or any conversion. Everything is available in a single tab. Okay, so that is how you can perform the time history analysis. Of course, it is not the entire process that is explained over here, but I have tried to cover most of the aspects of time history. Of course, non-linear time history is also there. For that, you should have non-linear elements which should be there in your model, and then you can plot the non-linear time history also. You can perform the non-linear time history also. Okay, fine. So that's it. I think I'm done with my presentation. So the question answer session is open.
Yeah. So there may be some, I think in chat box, there are some questions.
Yes. Let me go to the chat box. We'll just check. Okay. Yes, I will try to read the question.
That
And then
time history data file, where from it can be downloaded?
There are sites.
Handy.
There are sites which is available. So if you search on the Google strong ground motion record site, like that you can search, and then you will get that site. Name I do not remember, but there are ready-made time histories which is available. But remember, this data most of the time is not properly arranged. Maybe you will get some PDFs or some other format that you have to arrange it for application level in ETABS. Okay, so ETAB, whatever ETAB want is, as I shown you, that is the file. First thing, that should be a notepad file. Okay, so any other file is not acceptable. So notepad file should be there, and then the arrangement should be, means supposing if your values are in scientific manner, written in scientific manner, that means 10 to the power -3, like that. Okay, so that is not acceptable. Okay, so it should be in the form of digits only, so 0.001, like that. So all this arrangement you have to make, but data is available from internet. You will get it from internet. Yeah.
How to scale up or scale down the time history as near field and far field ground motion from our side?
Near field and far fields ground earthquake, that you need not to worry about. Whatever the distance is there, that you should look at first. Supposing if your time history is recorded at a particular distance from the epicenter, let us say if it more than 50 kilometer, so it may be 150 kilometer, 200 kilometer, that is categorized as a far field earthquake. But that far field earthquake cannot be converted into the near field earthquake. Okay, because it is recorded at a particular station, and wherever is the location of the station, there only you can means you can record your time history. Okay, so it cannot be, there is no relation between near field and far field earthquake, that you cannot means interpret whatever value is there for far field can be converted into the near field. That is not possible. But whatever record is available, that you can categorize as a near field or far field. Of course, near field earthquake is more destructing than far field earthquake. So if your recording station is 50 kilometer radius, so that will give you an actual idea of the actual earthquake happened to that particular site within the radius of 50 kilometer. Okay, so conversion is not possible. Yeah. Next question.
Is it necessary to define the match target response spectrum for time history analysis?
No. Actually, this is completely a different scenario where you are actually, this response spectra is developed from time history only. So how the response spectra is developed? Response spectra development is based on the time history analysis only. So number of time history record will be there. Suppose if you have got say 100 time history record for a particular site, and if you select the sequences of all these time histories, and if you plot it on a single plot, that is nothing but your response spectra. So response spectra is developed based on number of time histories, so there is a long procedure for development of response spectra. I will not go into the depth, but the thing is, response spectra is always on the conservative side, right? So whatever time history analysis you will be performing for a particular building, whatever response you will get from that particular time history, that should match with the response spectra. Okay, so that should match with the response spectra. That you can do. There are tools which is available in ETAB also. So you can match your time history with the response spectra, and then develop a new time history, which is similar to your response spectra, and then you can apply that time history. That is called as an artificial time history. Artificial time history you can create. You can match your original time history, and then you can apply to the model, but it will be a lengthy procedure. So that's it. Yes, you can do that. There are options available in ETAP also.
Is there any criteria for selecting the earthquake data?
Criteria for selecting earthquake data. See, there is no criteria as such, but it is a field dependent history you have to select. Supposing if you are using time history analysis, minimum 7 time histories you have to perform. Single time history response should not be considered for any design. So there should be minimum 7 to 8 time histories you have to apply for the model, and then you have to check the responses of all these time histories, and the maximum response should be selected. Okay, so that is the procedure. It should not be dependent on the single time history record. Okay, so that is the way. So selection of time history is again a difficult task. So which time history to be selected? It should be site specific first. Okay, so site specific time history is important. So otherwise, at least 7 time histories you have to perform. Yes.
So I think there are no questions. One is a site-specific response spectra. What it is?
Yeah, the site specific means, as I told you, you can develop your own response spectra for a particular site. For example, the soil which is available at the site. There are 2-3 types. One may be hard, medium, or soft soil that you have to check. And for a particular site at a particular location, for your analysis purpose. So that is site specific. Now, how to develop that response spectra? For that, if you can search on the Google, you will get videos to develop because it is not like a small procedure. It is a lengthy procedure, as I told you. But definitely you can generate your own response spectra for the site. Now, what is happening is, for the big project, okay, for example, Burj Khalifa or any other big building, okay, high-rise buildings. So most of the times these people are using site-specific response spectra, their own response spectra developed for that particular project. Okay, so whatever spectra which is given in 1893, that is not used. So site-specific spectra is more relevant to a particular project or particular site, and that will give you more precise results. Okay, so that you can do for the large progress, of course, but for other buildings, even you can go with 1893 spectra. Yes.
So one again question was there. So if we want to include the vertical acceleration, so how that function can be defined? Is it same as UX UI what you have said?
Yes, it is same. The only thing is it is in Z direction, because Z is vertical in case of your ETAP. So Z is vertical, but the acceleration value, AH value, is a 50% of the horizontal acceleration value that is defined in your 1893 also. So that factor you have to include. So whatever maximum response is there for X and Y direction, the 50% of the horizontal spectral acceleration, that you have to consider as a vertical acceleration value, right? So that is given in 1893. You can read the clauses. It is there how to consider the vertical earthquake, but the procedure is same. Instead of UX and UI, you have to apply it in Z direction. Okay, so that's it. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you, sir. Nice interaction, and you have given very good demonstration regarding that how this time history and analysis is carried out. So I think there are no few more questions in the chat box. So for this session now, today we will stop here. Tomorrow's session, there are some changes that the third session will be start after 5 to 10 minute break after second session. So that was the only change. So that change I will indicate on the WhatsApp group also. And every day we are trying to arrange one additional fifth session, but that will be shared you through the link. So there will be no any Zoom meeting session for the fifth session in this STDP. That will be shared you as a video link on WhatsApp group. So for that, again, some directions will be there that will be issued on the WhatsApp group. So thank you, Vaidya sir. Now again, I think
Yeah.
it's time.
Yes, yes. I will also like to thank the management of your college, Dr. Ali sir, Khandwe sir, and all coordinators who are involved in this particular activity. It's a nice coordination, fantastic coordination with all faculties and all. Also, it is a good experience for me also to interact with the persons. So thank you, sir. Thank you, Khandwe sir, and
Yes,
all
sir.
your team.
Actually, we have got a very good expert in the previous STDP also. So
Yes,
here,
yes, yes.
therefore, again, for this second STDP also, participants are showing very good response and they are patients listening.
Yes,
And
yes.
now everything is going fine for the third day also.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Thank you,
very
sir.
much. Yes, thank you.
So we will stop here for this session.
Yes,
Thanks to all the participants for being with us and for patient listening. Thank you, sir.
thank you, thank you.
Thank you, sir. सर मीटिंग एंड करू. तुमचा आवाज नाही येत सर. तुमचा आवाज नाही येत. सर तुमचा आवाज नाही येत.
Yes, now you can stop here, sir, please.